All right, Walter Walford back, short-term rental cash flow roadmap. Today we got another step. So it's all about scaling, getting our next properties, and I've decided for my next 6 properties, I'm going to do an arbitrage for all 6. So how do you go about finding owners and landlords who are willing to talk to you about the possibility of an arbitrage? And so I used the same process that I did when I hired a short-term rental assistant in the last video. Now we did the same thing for a person to look up property records and get contact information, skip trace, and that sort of thing. So we're using PropWire, and you'll like the process because we're getting 10 contacts a day, 50 a week, and we anticipate that we'll find 1 or 2 people who will do an arbitrage per month, and that suits our schedule just fine. So why don't you take a look and see if you like it. Okay, onward.
You know that feeling?
Yeah.
When you're looking at some new system, maybe a complex process, and it just feels like wading through this massive sea of information.
Oh, yeah. Information overload.
Exactly. And all you really want are the key bits, right? The strategy, the aha moments, without getting totally bogged down in every single detail.
Just the actionable stuff.
Well, that is precisely what we're aiming for today. We're going to cut through the noise and do a deep dive into this really comprehensive workflow. It's step-by-step, designed for finding, researching, and then actually reaching out to property owners.
Specifically for corporate or short-term rental leasing opportunities.
Right. Our source material here is basically a proven blueprint for this kind of property research and landlord outreach. It lays out everything, from using specific filters on tools like PropWire.
PropWire, yeah, great tool.
All the way to this kind of genius idea of sending actual physical mail using click-to-mail.
Which sounds counterintuitive, but we'll get into why it works.
Okay, so let's unpack this thing. Our mission today: strip away the fluff, reveal the core parts of this process, the clever strategies baked into it, and maybe most importantly, the potential results, the projected outcomes.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty compelling.
By the end of this, you should have a really quick grasp of how a truly systematic approach doesn't just, hope for results. It pretty much guarantees them if you follow the steps.
Consistency is key.
So let's set the stage. What's the big picture goal here? What are we trying to achieve with this whole workflow?
Well, fundamentally, it's not just about finding any old property. It's about finding the right residential properties.
Right, ones that are either for rent or maybe even listed for sale.
Exactly. The goal is to secure these properties for long-term leasing deals. Think housing for professionals like travel nurses, maybe corporate contractors.
Or even setting them up as short-term rentals, potentially.
Or STRs, yeah. So the workflow is really focused on finding those prime opportunities and, crucially, connecting with the right owners, the decision makers.
Okay, so finding the right owner is key. How does it start? Where's step 1?
It all starts with really meticulous targeting. Step 1 is strategic property identification, and we typically use PropWire.com for this.
Okay.
So you log in, and you start plugging in your filters for the locations you're targeting. Could be a specific zip code, a city, maybe even a neighborhood.
And what kind of properties?
Property type is always limited to single family only for this specific strategy. Keeps it focused.
Gotcha.
Now, here's a key point. The listing status. You can look at properties for rent, obviously, but also for sale.
Oh, interesting. Why for sale?
Well, it broadens your net. An owner trying to sell might not have considered a long-term corporate lease, but they might be very open to guaranteed income without the hassle of showings,
Oh, makes sense. A different kind of solution for them. What about timing?
We usually filter by days on market, often setting it to less than 90 days. Keeps the focus on more current active listings.
Okay, and price range too, I assume?
And naturally, yeah, a price range that fits the market you're working in. This initial filtering, it's not just about saving time. It's kind of psychological, too. You're setting yourself up to chase only the most likely leads.
Right, turning busy work into really targeted effort.
Oh.
Okay, so PropWire spits out some results based on these filters. Then what? Does the system just grab everything?
No. This is where the human evaluation really kicks in. You have to assess each listing.
So what makes you look at a listing and think, okay, this is a good sign? Like a green light, beyond just, nice photos or it being residential.
Yeah, good question. Well-maintained photos are a plus, obviously. Shows pride of ownership. But a really big green flag, seeing direct landlord contact info.
Like a cell phone number or a personal email.
Exactly. Rather than just like XYZ property management, if you see direct contact, you know you're likely talking straight to the decision maker. That speeds everything up massively.
Makes perfect sense. Cuts out the middleman.
Yeah.
So conversely, what are the red flags? The
Yeah.
things that make you say, nope, skip this one.
Definitely listings managed by large property management companies. That's usually a skip for this workflow.
Why is that? Is it a hard no? Couldn't a big company potentially be interested?
It's generally a hard no for this specific workflow. The strategy relies on high-volume, direct-to-owner outreach. Big companies often have layers of bureaucracy, different processes, or they're just not set up for this kind of individual corporate lease. Chasing them often becomes a time sink.
Okay, got it. Avoid the corporate black hole. What else?
Also skip listings with very few details, they look kind of sketchy, or ones that are clearly active Airbnb or Vrbo listings already. Unless you're specifically told otherwise, bypass those.
Right. So it's really about quality over quantity from the get-go. Discipline.
Absolutely. Saves huge amounts of time later and focuses your energy where it's actually likely to convert.
Okay. So we filtered, we evaluated, and we found a promising property. Awesome. But finding it is just the start, right?
Yeah.
How do you make sure you don't lose track of this potential gold mine and all the details?
Precisely. That leads us straight into step 2. Meticulous documentation. You need a system.
And that system is a Google Sheet.
Yep. Specifically what we call a standard PropWire lead tracker. It's basically a pre-built spreadsheet with all the essential columns you'll need.
Like what? Owner name, address.
Owner name, owner city-state ZIP, the property street address, city-state ZIP, phone number, email address, type of property, how it was listed for rent or for sale, the source, PropWire, your outreach status, and a notes column. Everything you need at a glance.
Seems thorough. What makes it efficient, though? Just having columns isn't enough.
Right. The magic is in how you use it. You log every single entry as you find it, no batching later. And critically, in that notes column, you put a hyperlink directly back to the original listing on PropWire or Zillow or wherever you saw it.
Ah, smart.
Yep.
So you can always jump back to the source.
Exactly. Consistent formatting is key, too. Like always capitalizing names and addresses properly. And then there's color coding for status.
Color coding. How does that work?
Simple visual cues. Green row means you've contacted them. Yellow means it's flagged for follow-up. Red means it's disqualified, maybe a bad number, or they said no.
Nice. So you can just scan down the sheet and instantly see where everything stands. Clarity meets efficiency. Stops you from that, wait, did I call this person moment?
Exactly. Prevents duplication of effort and keeps the momentum going.
Okay, this is where it gets, really interesting for me. You've got a promising lead in your sheet, but you hit that wall, no owner contact info on the listing. This is where a lot of people will probably just give up, right?
Many would, yeah. But in this workflow, that's just the trigger for step 3, researching the owner's contact information.
So you don't just skip the lead.
Nope. You dig deeper. First stop is often public records.
How do you find those?
Usually a simple Google search does the trick. Something like county name property tax search or county name property appraiser site. You search for the property address on the official county site.
And that gives you...
Often, it gives you the owner's name and, critically, their mailing address, which might be different from the property address if they're an absentee owner.
Okay, so now you have a mailing address. What if you need more? Like a phone or email?
That's where skip tracing tools come in. There are free options like True People Search, White Pages, Fast People Search. Sometimes paid options are provided too, which can be more powerful.
Skip tracing. Sounds like something out of a detective novel.
Yeah, kinda. But it's basically just using online databases to find associated phone numbers, email addresses, maybe even other properties they own.
And all this new info, mailing address, phone, email, any notes from the skip trace that goes straight back into the Google Sheet.
Absolutely. You update that leads row, now your record is complete and you're ready for outreach.
All right, so now we have the property details. We've hopefully tracked down the owner's contact info.
Yeah.
What's the next move? Step 4.
Step 4, sending the initial outreach, getting that first message out.
And the main method is email.
Primary method is email. Yeah. You'd use an approved email template. But here's the important part. You personalize it. Always use the owner's name and the specific property address.
Makes sense. Nobody likes generic spam.
Exactly. That little bit of personalization dramatically increases open rates and response rates. And of course, the second you hit send, you log the date and time in your Google Sheet tracker under outreach status.
Okay, email first. But you mentioned something else earlier, physical mail. Click to mail. That sounds fascinating.
Yes. This is the alternative and often very effective method. It's where you combine that digital research with a high-touch physical approach.
So when do you use click-to-mail instead of email?
Typically, you use it if you couldn't find an email address or a phone number through your research, or sometimes a manager might specifically direct you to use it for certain leads, maybe based on the owner's profile.
How does it work? Do you have to print, stuff envelopes, buy stamps?
Nope, that's the beauty of it. Click-to-mail automates the physical mail part. You go to click2mail.com, you choose Send Letter, you upload a pre-designed letter template, usually as a PDF.
A template? What's in that?
We'll get to the content in a sec. Then you just enter the owner's mailing address, the one you found from public records or skip tracing. Select first-class mail, standard black and white printing, single-sided usually. Click Send, pay the fee, and Click-to-Mail handles the printing and mailing.
Wow, so it automates the snail mail hassle, but still delivers that physical piece, leverages tech for a personal touch.
Exactly. It gets noticed in a way email sometimes doesn't, especially with certain demographics, like maybe older or out-of-state owners.
Okay, tell me about that letter template. What does it actually say?
The template itself is structured professionally. It'll have your business logo or name, your contact details, the date, and then the recipient's name and mailing address properly formatted.
Standard letter stuff. What's the core message?
The core message is where the persuasion happens. It clearly states your interest in their specific property. It highlights that your company specializes in long-term guaranteed rental arrangements for vetted professionals, again, mentioning travel nurses or corporate folks.
So, hitting those key words. What else?
Crucially, it addresses potential owner pain points up front. It states that your company covers furnishing, all maintenance, and cleaning, essentially with no cost or hassle to you.
No cost or hassle. That's a big promise.
It is. And it emphasizes timely monthly payments, guaranteed. It's designed to sound like a much easier, more secure alternative to traditional landlording.
So it's a very specific, benefit-driven pitch. What's the call to action?
Simple and low commitment. Just asks for a brief conversation to explain the housing model in more detail and discuss how it benefits them. It's concise, compelling, and aims right at what an owner might worry about.
Okay, so initial outreach sent email or maybe that click-to-mail letter. What happens next? Just wait by the phone.
Well, you wait, but strategically. Patience and persistence are vital here. That's step 5, the follow-up protocol.
How long do you wait?
Typically, you give it about 3 to 5 business days after that initial contact. Give them a chance to see it and respond.
And if? Crickets. No response.
If there's no response after that first touch, you send a second message. This could be using an approved follow-up email template, which is usually shorter, just a gentle nudge.
Or could you use a different method? Like if you emailed first, maybe send a letter now.
Or try a different method, exactly. Maybe email to text if you found a number, or send that click-to-mail letter as the follow-up. Mix it up sometimes. And naturally, you update the outreach status in your Google Sheet to show you've sent follow-up #1.
Right, track everything. What if they still don't respond after the second try? Or maybe a third?
Yeah, you typically try 2 or 3 touches in total. If there's still absolute silence after that, you need to know when to move on.
So you don't chase them forever?
Definitely not. At that point, you mark the lead in your tracker as closed no response, or maybe cold lead, if they replied but explicitly said not interested. It's important not to waste energy on totally unproductive leads. You're persistent, but strategically persistent.
Got it. Focus the effort where there's at least some signal. Okay, so we've walked through the whole workflow, identifying, researching, tracking, outreach, follow-up, pulling it all together. What are the absolute must-dos for success? The best practices.
Well, consistency is huge. Working in focused daily sessions helps, like aiming to research maybe 10 new leads, send the outreach for them, and update your tracker all in one block of time.
Rather than trying to do like 50 at once and getting overwhelmed.
Exactly, little and often. Also, double-checking details is critical. Spellings of names, correctness of addresses, especially if you're sending mail via click-to-mail, accuracy matters.
Good point. Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. Using standard file naming conventions like the Research First Name Market MMDDY format mentioned keeps your own files organized. Keeping all communication, email or letter, really respectful, clear, and brief is key too.
Get straight to the point. Value their time.
Mm-hmm. And finally, if you're ever unsure about sending physical mail, especially if it costs money via click-to-mail, just double check with your manager or team lead first. Better safe than sorry.
Makes sense. These aren't just rules, they sound like principles for making the whole thing actually work effectively.
They are. They maximize impact and minimize wasted effort.
Now let's connect this to the bigger picture. You mentioned compelling numbers earlier. If someone follows this systematic approach, what kind of results can they realistically anticipate? Let's talk outcomes.
Okay, yeah. Let's look at projected weekly outcomes, assuming a target of making, say, 50 initial contacts per week.
50 owners reached out to.
Yeah. So 50 initial contacts sent, that's your 100% starting point. Now, not all will get through bad emails, return mail, etc. So maybe about 80% get delivered. That's around 40 owners actually receiving your message.
Okay, 40 delivered. Then what?
The response rate, people actually replying to your email or letter, is projected at around 15 to 25%. So out of those 40, you might get roughly 6 to 10 responses back.
6 to 10 responses. That seems pretty decent.
It is, and what's really interesting is that the response rate tends to be noticeably higher when the outreach is personalized and mailed via click-to-mail. That physical touch seems to cut through the digital noise.
That hybrid approach paying off again. Okay, 6-10 responses. Are they all good leads?
Not necessarily. Some might be a flat no, but you can expect about 5 to 10% of the original 50 contacts to become warm leads. That's maybe 2 to 5 owners per week who are interested, curious, asking questions.
Okay, 2 to 5 warm leads. Getting closer.
From there, about 3 to 5% of the original 50 might convert into actual qualified conversations booked.
Yeah.
So scheduling 1 to 3 calls per week to seriously discuss the opportunity.
1 to 3 calls booked per week. And the final step, closing the deal.
The average close rate, actually securing the property lease, tends to hover around 1 to 2% of the initial contacts. So that translates to about 0.5 to 1 property secured per week on average.
Half a property to 1 property per week. So some weeks might be 0, some might be 2.
Exactly. It fluctuates. But if you scale that up, assuming 4 weeks in a month.
Okay, let's do the math. 50 contacts week times 4 weeks, 200 outreach attempts total.
Right. That could lead to roughly 25 to 40 total responses over the month,
Okay.
which might generate 10 to 20 warm leads, leading to maybe 4 to 10 qualified calls booked.
And the bottom line.
And potentially resulting in securing 2 to 4 new STR or MTR lease opportunities per month.
Wow. Okay, 2 to 4 new leases per month just by consistently working this system. That's actually a really tangible payoff for that discipline.
It is. It shows how process drives results.
So what are the real levers here? What are the key factors that boost those outcomes? Make the difference between hitting the low end or the high end of those ranges?
Good question. Number one, definitely that click-to-mail follow-up we keep mentioning. Using direct mail, especially for follow-ups or owners without email, consistently boosts response rates, especially, as I said, with older or absentee owners. It just stands out.
Okay, so don't underestimate physical mail. What else?
Second, that high-quality lead filtering right at the start. Ruthlessly skipping those big corporate managed properties saves so much wasted time and focuses your energy on owners who are actually reachable and potentially interested.
Quality in, quality out. Makes sense.
Third, having really well-written, clear, benefit-driven templates for both email and the letter. Clarity and focusing on their benefits, less hassle, guaranteed rent that gets engagement.
The messaging matters. And fourth,
just relentless tracking and polite, persistent follow-up. Using that Google Sheet, knowing who needs a nudge when, and being professional about it makes a huge difference over time. It's about disciplined execution.
it really sounds like property acquisition isn't just luck or a numbers game, but it's a strategy game executed consistently.
Precisely.
Is there any kind of reporting built into this? How do you track progress overall?
Yeah, accountability is key. There's usually a weekly reporting component, typically every Friday, end of day.
What gets reported?
You'd submit a link to your live Google Sheet tracker, so everything's transparent. And alongside that, usually a short summary email.
What's in the summary?
Key metrics for the week. Total properties researched, total outreach attempts made, number of warm responses or leads generated, maybe calls booked. And also, importantly, any challenges you ran into, questions you have, or interesting trends you noticed.
So it's not just about numbers, but also about learning and adapting the process.
Yeah, exactly. It ensures continuous improvement and keeps everyone aligned.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What does this all really mean for you, the listener? We've just walked through quite a detailed, structured workflow, haven't we?
We have, step by step.
For finding and securing properties for corporate or short-term rentals. It kind of demystifies what can seem like this really complex, daunting task.
Breaks it down into manageable chunks.
Right, by laying out clear, actionable steps. That initial research, the strict filtering, crafting the right message, using tools like PropWire and Click-to-Mail, and then that diligent follow-up and tracking.
And knowing the numbers helps too.
Knowing the expected conversion rates at each stage, like we discussed, yeah, that takes the guesswork out of it. It transforms property acquisition from something unpredictable into, well, a predictable, potentially high-yield operation.
It really is a testament to the power of having a disciplined process and sticking to it.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, building on all this. Consider how this specific workflow blends modern digital tools like PropWire for the heavy lifting of research with a surprisingly traditional high-touch method like physical mail via Click-to-Mail.
That hybrid approach we talked about. Yeah.
It creates this really unique and apparently quite effective strategy in our super digital world. So the question for you is, what other areas, maybe in your business or even in your personal outreach, could potentially benefit from that kind of thoughtful hybrid strategy, marrying the efficiency of digital with the unique impact of a personal, maybe even physical touch?
Interesting question. Where else can that old school meet new school approach really make a difference today? Something to think about.